thought it'd be good to just kind of get back and reset things as we kind of get started with the 2026 version of this football program. Feels like it's been a whirlwind since the Miami game of, retention, portal recruiting, high school recruiting, trying to get everybody here and situated, and felt like it kind of finally slowed down a little bit. So to take a minute and get in front of everybody and just kind of reset where we are as we head into the offseason. Excited about what we did, excited about what we added, excited about kind of the direction that the program continues to head and trend in. And so we're excited to kick off this new season. I think it was probably a little bit busier offseason than we've had recently when you add the coaching changes and the different pieces. And so just to kind of reset where we got to offensively this offseason, we wound up bringing in seven transfers, 12 high school kids enrolled mid-year. We have Evan Jacobson, who'll be joining us in the spring. That's the one freshman who didn't make it. He's going to go try to win a state championship in basketball to finish out his high school career, and then he'll join us in the end of May. From a coaching standpoint, obviously, we've discussed the Holmon move. Joey Lynch is going to take over at quarterback. John Perry is going to move into more of a accelerated role with the wide receivers, although obviously Holmon will still play a role in that as well. We were able to bring in Derek Shea to work with the tight ends, and then just a couple of additional additions. We were able to bring Rich Skrosky in to kind of take over Joey's role, working with the running backs, doing some of the advanced scouting in the running game. Rich was with us at Duke, a phenomenal football mind. He'll do a great job in that role. We went out and hired Drew Hollingshead, obviously who you guys know the name very well. Spent some time here with his dad, Tam, when I was here as the defensive coordinator, a legendary high school coach. I think Drew will kind of slide into that advanced passing game role that John Perry kind of did last year, and so it's just kind of as we move guys up, making sure that we're kind of replacing the full complement of the staff. And then the one other guy that we added that kind of went under the radar a little bit is Brad Cornelson. Brad was with Coach Wiggins at Alabama, had kind of moved into a high school coaching role in Oklahoma, and he's another guy that we kind of added into an off-the-field role, just a guy who has a lot of background in what we're trying to do, is kind of specialized in quarterbacks, and so just another experienced veteran to kind of bring into that room. Defensively, we went out and we brought in 10 transfers, 13 high school players. And so, again, kind of the retool and also the stocking of the young talent, making sure that we're doing both of those things. Recently promoted Brian Gross-Armiento to corners. Thought that was something that he was ready for. It was the right time for him to move into that role. Obviously, a kid very familiar with our system. He's not a kid anymore. He played for me, so I always call him a kid. But a young coach who's ready for that role, moving into that role. He'll do a phenomenal job. Has done a great job recruiting and really kind of stepped into that leadership role as we were transitioning through, trying to figure out the right move, and ultimately kind of made it really clear that it should be him. It was great to get Elijah Robinson back. Obviously a name everybody's familiar with, but excited to add him back to the staff. And then bringing T. Will in from Arkansas to kind of work with the linebackers, I think gives us another guy with a lot of juice, a lot of energy, and that'll be good. And then again, the off-the-field positions that are critical to what we're doing. We were able to bring Zach Sparber in to kind of work with the linebackers, a guy who was with us at Duke, coach linebackers at JMU. For Coach Hemphill, most recently, was the co-defensive coordinator at Rutgers, and so to get him into an off-the-field position, I think is a tremendous addition. And then I don't know if this one even has gone public yet, but we brought in Paul Williams, an experienced secondary coach from Stanford, to kind of work in that Nichols role that BGA had kind of worked through, but just a little bit more experienced guy to put into that secondary room so we can keep the balance the right way. And then in special teams, it was a big offseason for us there as well. We added 5 specialists, 2 transfers, 3 high school kids in the mid-year. And so just kind of retooling and revamping that room. And then also went out and hired Tony Thompson to be a special teams analyst to work alongside Coach Dougherty. And Coach Thompson joins us from Purdue, where he served in a similar role the last couple of years at Purdue in West Virginia. And so it's been a retooling of the staff, the roster. Feels like we've done a lot, but it feels like now we're finally stable and kind of ready to roll as we move forward. And so excited about where we are, excited about where we're headed. And from there, I'll just kind of let you guys ask what's on your mind.
Coach, we'll go to the left. Rob. Howdy, Coach.
Howdy.
If I hand you a list of the portal kids, would you mind saying a few words about each one of them?
I think you know the answer to that.
Yes.
No. No, I'm not going through every portal kid. If there's any in particular
tell me
you'd like
about
to ask
the
about.
offensive linemen that you added then.
Yeah, I think, we were in a couple unique spots. I think, we kind of talked about this hopefully being the last year that we're in this situation with the portal where there's still some holes in the upper part of our roster from the transition era and the smaller recruiting class that was here when I kind of took over, some of the kids that had gone in and out. And so we looked at our roster and we had Mark Nebu coming back. And outside of that, the oldest offensive lineman we had was sophomore in eligibility. And so we felt like it was important for us to just go out and get some experienced competition to bring into that group. And I think we're able to do that. I think we added 2 edge guys in Wilkin Formby and Tyree Adams, 2 kids who've played a lot of football in the SEC, really talented kids. Really excited about both of those additions. And then to get Cohen Eccles back, a kid who started some games in the interior of the offensive line, obviously a kid that we were familiar with here, tried to retain in the class when I got hired, and ultimately able to get him back now. And then to able to go out and get Trevon Ball, who started a lot of games in the inside offensive line in South Carolina, a kid that we tried really hard to get at Duke, had a really good relationship with him and his family, and again, another just experienced SEC guy to bring in so that, those young, talented kids that we believe are going to be really good players will go out and compete, and the best guys will play. That will always be the case, but we just felt like there was an upper class experience gap that we needed to fill.
Coach, we'll go over to the right, second row, David.
Two-part question. How much pride do you take in getting 13 guys invited to the Combine and what this program is trying to do? And then also with the spring here, how important is it for guys to step up this spring to replace that veteran leadership?
Yeah, I think that's, we talked a lot about that being the mark for this program, right? Needing to have more NFL guys. We spend a lot of time talking about high school rankings and high school ratings and stars and this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, for us to be the program we want to be, we've got to be a team that's consistently producing NFL football players, because that means we have some of the most talented football players in the country playing for us at the end of their career, right? And that's really, really important. And so to get the most guys in the country invited to the Combine, the most that we've had, I think, in forever, if I'm not mistaken, those are markers, right? And then hopefully that capitalizes in the draft, where it projects that we'll have more kids drafted than we've had since 1971. Those are all tremendous indicators of the talent we're bringing into the program, the NFL development that's happening in the program. I think all of that, the retention, I just think those are good markers for everything that we're doing. And then, the next step of being a really good program is that's got to be every year. Right, and so that's got to be, if you look around the country at the teams that are really good, really consistently, that's the markers, and then they all leave and the next wave steps up, right? So that at this time next year, we're talking about double-digit kids at the Combine, potentially double-digit kids getting drafted, and that's the need for kids to step up, fill roles. It's why you have to go out and get some older guys from the portal. And obviously we lost a lot of talented players, and for us to be the team we want to be next year, there's got to be a lot of development this offseason to get there.
Coach, we'll stay to the right. First row, Travis.
Mike, first, how maybe was things different this offseason, having just the one transfer portal window, and is that something you were in favor of now that you've been through it once?
Yeah, tremendously in favor of it. Never, ever liked the idea of 2 free agent windows. And I think especially now when you talk about rev share caps and salary cap management to some degree, the thought that you would, balance that cap and then have another portal window never seemed to make a ton of sense. And so I think obviously that's really good. I think, the more kids can just make the decisions that they want to make, the better it will be for the sport. We're never going to get rid of tampering, but, if it's not 45 days a year, open windows to leave, if it's not, these long periods of time where kids are going to get pulled in different directions by a bunch of different people, the more we can reduce the amount of windows, the amount of days to just let kids declare their intentions based on what they actually want to do. I think the better it is for kids, I think the better it is for the sport. And so I think it's all trending in the right direction that way.
How cool was it for the program and for you to bring in a guy like Houston Thomas, who I believe you've known for quite a while?
Yeah, it's cool. Like there's so many full circle things that happen in this profession, especially being here in College Station. And he's a kid who went to school with my older son, and so knew who Houston was as a ninth grader when he was a young wide receiver developing into his body, and obviously to watch his development in high school while I was here as the defensive coordinator, and then we got a chance to play them this year and to see kind of what he had become as a college tight end, and then he goes in the transfer portal, and obviously I just think it made a lot of sense for all parties to bring him in here and add him, and he's been great since he's gotten here, working really hard, and looking forward to seeing what he can do.
Which will go to the left, second row, Alex.
With Elijah Robinson, just why was he the right fit, right choice for that position, bringing him in, and then just how much of maybe an added benefit is his familiarity with this program and him coming in right now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, him and I came here together in 2018. It's no secret we tried to retain him when I got hired. I think at that point in his mind there were different boxes he had to check, getting a chance to be a coordinator and doing those things. I think when it became apparent and you saw this play out, that he was going to try to maybe get back into a co-DC / D-line role. He became one of the most coveted coaches in the market. So to be able to add him to our staff, he's a great D-line coach. He's a great football coach. He's a great man. I think he does an unbelievable job with relationships and the connections that he makes in our program. And so I think all of that with a guy who I have a lot of familiarity with, who I've worked hand in hand with, you trust at every level, and then a guy who knows College Station, knows this program, and knows what Texas A&M is all about. I think it makes it all a home run.
And just with the guys y'all brought in through the transfer portal on the defensive line, just what was your point of emphasis in the guys that y'all went and got, and just kind of the type of player you were looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure it was the same kind of thing as the offensive line. We needed some old, experienced guys. We needed guys who had played snaps at the collegiate level. Obviously, there's a talent marker, if you're trying to find guys to project. I think one of the reasons why we've had so much success with the transfers is we've looked and found guys who fit our scheme, our system, our needs, and so I think each one of them does that. Again, we have, it's an interesting, different than some of the other years past. Like, I don't know how these jobs will play out. I think in the past we've just had these big holes that we needed to fill. I think this year it's kind of like, well, we've got these young guys that I think have a chance to make a giant step this offseason. We've got these older guys who have played a lot of football. It'll be really cool to see, who ultimately comes out on top of a lot of those competitions. I think that would just be really, really good for our program.
We'll go back over to the right, second row, Olano.
Yeah, Mike, I wanted to kind of follow up on what some of the things David was asking you about. I can't remember. It was early in the year last year when you came up you told us that you felt like you had, I think you said 10 or more.
I said 10.
NFL-type prospects.
Yeah. Keep track of that when we hit the draft, too, because I think I'm going to be pretty close.
Yeah. So I was wondering, based on your evaluation of the guys you brought in and then seeing the guys develop that are already here, do you have a feel for what kind of talent that you're going to have on this roster now?
No, I think the thing that makes me much better at predicting that stuff than some others in some other areas that we pay attention to is I want to wait until we play football. I want to wait till we made that. A lot of those conversations happened during fall camp last year when we had been around the guys, we had seen them play ball, we had seen what type of toughness they had, what type of mental capacity they had in the game of football, and so no, we've got guys that obviously we see a path to double digits, but I'm nowhere close to being able to say where we're going to be yet.
How do you feel about the running back room coming into the spring without a guy like Le'Veon around anymore?
Well, I miss Le'Veon. I wish we could have him back. Unfortunately, we can't. Unfortunately, I think his best football was taken away by injury a lot in his career at Texas A&M. But he's going to leave as a kid who certainly left a dent on this program and what he did here and how he impacted it, and is a Texas A&M Aggie for life and graduated from here. And so, look forward to watching him. I think we've got a really, really good room. Obviously, we're looking forward to getting Ruben healthy, and that'll be really good for him. That injury took a major toll on him I think this offseason now, starting fresh, being healthy from the beginning, I think you'll see a much better version of Ruben. We obviously have got a lot of confidence in Jamarian Morrow, and you saw what he was able to do in spurts last year. Tiger Ryden's a kid that we believe in, and we believe will impact the room. And then I think the two freshmen that we brought in, we feel like we got two of the best backs in the country. And if you're going to bring in elite ball carriers, you're going to have to be able to find ways to get them opportunities. And so KJ Edwards and Carson Baker will be a big part of the conversation too. And so we'll have a lot of carries to divvy out. We'll have a lot of competition to see who gets them. And I think we're excited about where the room is.
We'll go to the front left, Tony.
Mike, obviously the hiring of Holmon Wiggins to the ops coordinator, so the different change in play caller there, but can you kind of expand on maybe some of the similarities and differences between, him and Klein and what they brought in, whether it be recruiting or maybe personnel or philosophy there?
Yeah, I don't know that it's worth it, honestly, Tony, to compare. I think what we have in Holman is a guy who is really, really elite football coach, has been around a lot of elite systems, has learned from a lot of the best coordinators in the game and in the country, has worked extremely hard in 2 years here to play a major role in success on offense and an upward trajectory of where we're going on offense consistently over the last 2 years, and then a group of people around him that I have a lot of confidence in. I think you've seen a lot of development positionally across the board. You've seen our running backs get better. You've seen our O-line get better. You've seen our wide receivers get better. And so we just felt like it was the natural thing that made sense to take him and give him an opportunity, which he's been awesome with and really excited about, and surround him with a bunch of people that are going to help support him in the areas that are new to him. Right, play calling's new, but at some point you have to do it. You have to do it for the first time, and someone's got to trust you to do it. And I certainly trust him to the highest level.
Coach will stay to the left, third row, Matthias.
With those 13 draft prospects, combine invites, how do you guys, and you specifically, and you as a program, kind of support them throughout that process?
Yeah, I think we offer them some education, some insight, some information as they go through the different steps of it. I think in this day and age, there's a lot of people out there that want to have opinions and insight, and so to different degrees probably with each kid. We'll be excited. I'm going to try to get out to the combine and support them up there. I was able to get down to the Senior Bowl to support our guys there, and then obviously we'll have a very well-attended pro day and a lot of general managers and scouts out here. And so I just think it's where this program needed to get to, right? And now it's just got to stay there.
Coach, we'll go to the front right, Carter.
Mike, how much of a priority was maybe getting a bigger X kind of receiver, and what do you think Isaiah Horton will bring to this offense?
Yeah, I think it was a big one. I mean, I think it was, something we talked about last year. That was the one thing we felt like we tried really hard to get and weren't able to, was just a taller kid. And I think what you have now is a taller, physical wide receiver who has played a lot of high-level competitive football at Miami and Alabama, and just another diverse skill set to add to that room, and a different one than the guys that we have in there and the guys that we return. And so, he was a kid that we tried to get last year. He ultimately settled on Alabama, and when the opportunity came back up to get him again, we were excited that we were able to land him.
When you look back and kind of assess what Marcel was able to do last year, what are kind of one or two things you've looked at and said, hey, this could maybe get better, and this is maybe something we work on this offseason?
Yeah, I think, him no different probably than our team. What I told our team was this. I said, our highs in 2026 were high enough to win the national championship. When we were at our best, we were as good as anybody in the country. We had not the ability to be there all the time. Right, and that's just where we came up short. We weren't able to hit those marks consistently all the time, and then certainly down the stretch in the last two games when we needed it, we weren't able to. And so, last offseason it was about finishing and making sure that we finished the right way. I think this year it's a little bit more about consistency and urgency. have been the two words that we've really used a lot in the room. And so I think that applies to Marcel. I think there were times where you saw him play quarterback at an elite level, and there were times where he didn't. And I think how we get him to be urgent and consistent in his performance week in and week out, that's the next step for him and everybody in our program.
Which will go back over to the left. Rob?
Hey, Coach, talk about the importance of probably getting arguably one of the best kickers out of the portal in David Olano.
Yeah, hopefully really important. I think he's a kid that we targeted, we thought was really talented when he entered his name into the portal. He did not come easily. He was coveted by some of the best programs in the country, and we were able to land him. And I think I think we emphasize special teams a lot in this program. We all know that we weren't quite up to standard last year, and I think retooling that room is really important, and he's a big piece of it.
Coach, we'll go all the way to the back.
Hey, Mike, the idea of playoff success and playoff experience being important for a program, how do you expect that to help the 2026 Aggies, or is that something that's sort of played out, because so many teams are new with the transfer portal era?
No, I think, again, we talked about this. Sorry, the lights are a little bit bright back there. For us to become the program we wanted to do, there's certain check marks that we had to hit as a program that we just haven't done, right? And so certainly, getting invited into the playoffs, being part of the playoffs, playing for SEC championship game opportunities down the stretch, we haven't done any of those things. And so the fact that we're doing them now, that was always going to be the first step we had to take before we became the program everyone wanted to see us become. And so, I think experience matters. I think comfortability in those situations matters. I think now having higher expectations for what your program's capable of matters. And so I think all of that comes together. And so, I think that'll play a big role moving forward.
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet in college football, but obviously we saw in men's basketball the idea of the pro player coming back to college. I know some coaches across sports are worried about it being a slippery slope and precedents being set. What are your thoughts on that?
I think slippery slope might be the understatement of a lifetime. Not to speak about each individual basketball situation because I really don't know enough about them from a football perspective. It'd be really cool if we got back to this being an amateur sport and college athletics being what college athletics are, and the fewer people in society that have the ability to kind of just stick their hands up and cry they want something and they get it just because they want it will probably be better off.
We'll go to the front right. Travis?
Hey, Mike, as you look back at the portal, was there any position groups or any things that didn't manifest just because the cards didn't play out, or that you didn't get to add the depth for it because the cards didn't play out that way?
I guess I've said this to a couple of people. It's probably the right way to word this question. People need to understand sometimes that the transfer portal window and the recruiting in the transfer portal is not like going to the grocery store where you just kind of get to pick what you want at whatever price you want it. There's a lot of elements that come into what you're actually able to add to the program. And so I think every time we go into the portal window, we're trying to add quality that fits us from a character standpoint, from a them wanting to be pros standpoint, them wanting to be part of a winning program and doing the things the way we do them. And so I don't know that you necessarily graded in terms of what you didn't get. I think we always try to grade it in terms of making sure that we hit those marks. And if we continue to hit those marks, we're going to have enough talent in the program to be successful. And I think that's kind of how we look at it. And, you could always point to this position or what if we would have got one more of these or one more of these. But the reality of it is we as a staff just didn't believe the right thing existed in those areas. And in my opinion, you're better off bringing in things that fit you than just rolling the dice and seeing how things happen. And we try not to do that very much.
We'll stay to the right. Carter?
After you guys lost Torian York and Will Lee, y'all essentially replaced them with Ray Coney and Rickey Gibson. Wanted to ask about those two guys in particular and what kind of jumps out to you about their skill sets.
Yeah, I think obviously both of those guys, we kind of had a really good inkling. We're going to choose to go the NFL route. There wasn't really much discussion or conversation with either one of those guys. We kind of knew where their intentions were, and so that process started. Rickey was a kid that obviously was an elite corner in this league 2 years ago, played at a really, really high level, probably expected to be in the NFL draft this year, but unfortunately had an injury in the first game and wasn't able to play as much as he would have liked to last year. And so that one certainly seemed like one that made a ton of sense for us, adding an experienced guy to come in. And we have Julian Humphrey to compete as well, and some of our young kids. And I think all of that just kind of added up and lined up the right way together. Ray Coney was a kid that we wanted to get one older, experienced linebacker. I thought that was critical. Kid who's been really, really productive at Tulsa, has been a dominant player in that league. Felt like had the skill set that projected to kind of make this jump and be a successful player. And again, it's similar to a lot of positions. You've got Noah McHale, you've got Jordan Lockhart, who we think are really talented players that are going to put themselves in position to make the jump to be SEC starters, and wanted to bring in one older guy to be a guy to compete with them. And it's a really unique dynamic that you have that at a lot of these positions. You have these young guys that, like, you bring them guys in here and put them on the stage, and they're going to tell you, I'm not sitting behind anybody. And you've got these older guys who've started a lot of college football games that have certainly come here to win starting jobs. And so I think that's going to create a really, really competitive environment, and I think that's really good.
I know you touched on him a little earlier, but Wilkin Formby, I know he's played right tackle, played some guard. Do you kind of see him at right tackle, or do you think he has the versatility, or do you want him to have the option to play both?
Yeah, no, I think he's a right tackle. I think he's an elite right tackle. I think if you watch him block the elite edges in this league, he does it really, really well. You don't always compare kids because it's not fair to either kid, but there's a lot of Trey Zune in him, just in terms of his character, work ethic, demeanor, the way he goes about his business. And so, we lost not only some really talented offensive linemen, but we also lost some leadership in that offensive line room. And, both of those things are skill sets that we wanted to try to go out and replace. And we thought Wilkin would be a guy to do both of those. And obviously, Holmon Wiggins, having some familiarity with him from his days at Alabama, we were really comfortable with the total package that we were getting in him.
We'll go back over to the left, Alex.
We've obviously talked with you about Holman and Lyle getting promoted. You mentioned how, though, a couple other positions with Joey and BGA getting promoted to their positions as well. I'm just curious why those guys were the right fit, promoting from within versus going from the outside.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that gets made of the outside versus inside stuff. I think anytime there's a job that comes open on our staff, we talk to a lot of people. I think we try to identify what the right fits are. Sometimes that's an outside name. Sometimes that's an outside name that's got familiarity with the program. Sometimes it's an outside name that's got nothing to do with Texas A&M. But there's no right answer. Right? There's no right answer to say if we promote from within, that's the right way to do it, or if we hire from the outside, that's the right way to do it. I think the right answer is what you believe in and what you believe is the best for the program, and I think we try to do that in every decision that we make.
And just with the coaching staff as a whole, some familiar faces and new roles, obviously some new guys coming in. You had a lot of continuity year 1 to year 2, but the difference is year 2 to year 3. Just how would you describe just the personality, the demeanor, the makeup of your coaching staff as a whole going into this third year?
Yeah, I think it's really important that when you put a coaching staff together, I actually just addressed the Chancellor's Century Council about this the other night. We talk a lot about culture and how the improved culture within this program has led to a lot of our success. Like, that's something that you have to also look into when you hire people, right? You have to hire that. You've got to recruit that. Like, if that's truly what you believe in, it's got to be in everything you do. And again, there's always a level of talent, right? If we're just a bunch of nice guys that can't do our job at a high level, then we won't be successful. And so you're never looking to do that. But I think there's a level of character, there's a level of commitment to Texas A&M and the program that you're looking for when you go out to try to hire coaches. And so I think all of that goes hand in hand when you're building this thing. And so, again, there's a lot of, people that make Twitter get real excited in recruiting, in hiring, in all of those things. There's probably just as many of those people who have burned programs down to the ground over the course of time if you really study it. And so just try to do what we think is right for our program.
All right, anything else for Coach? Great, thank you.
Good. Thank you, guys.